something called the art of fighting without fighting.
Hi and welcome back to Kung Fu Shrimp. As promised, in this video I'm going to be looking at all the comments on my previous uploads to try and answer any questions people have about what it's like to keep a peacock mantis shrimp. Most of these questions have been asked multiple times, so I'll pick one to read out, but I'll also put the names of all the other people who've asked on screen. My apologies if I miss anyone. Oh, and I might as well take this opportunity to say sorry for when I inevitably butcher people's names. Finally, if you enjoy this video, please remember to hit that like button, and if you feel like it, leave a comment. I seem to be really struggling to get these videos picked up by YouTube at the moment, so hitting that like and commenting on the video really makes a difference to getting it noticed by the algorithm, and hopefully suggested to more people. This may only be hastening Bruce's plans for world domination, but I for one welcome our new mantis shrimp overlord.
Treacherous as the sea! Stronger than the foundations of the earth! All shall love me and despair!
Okay, Bruce. So, with that out of the way, let's take a dive into the comment section and see what you guys are itching to know. The first question we have is probably the most common one I get asked, and it seems to worry a lot of potential mantis shrimp keepers. Gladiator Mex asks, I heard that mantis shrimp can break the glass of your tank with their hammer. Is that true? I don't want to get one if they're going to cause a flood in my house. Well, this does seem to be one of the first things you'll learn when you start looking up information on mantis shrimp, and it's often recommended they're kept in acrylic tanks for this reason. It was certainly a concern for me when I first got my mantis shrimp, but even at that time I was a little suspicious, as although you'll hear this tale repeated over and over, I've never read a first-hand account of mantis shrimp actually shattering a tank. Still, it was enough for me to put an acrylic sheet at the bottom of Bruce's first tank, as I'd heard the most likely time for this to happen is when they're digging out a burrow. I never saw any evidence of this, however, and in Bruce's new tank I didn't bother. I did have someone explain to me once that the fact that there's water on one side and air on the other actually makes it harder for them to crack the outer wall of a tank, but I'm afraid the physics baffled me, so I won't even attempt to explain it. If we have any smart people watching who think they can help me get my head around this, please post in the comments, as I'd love to know if this is even correct, and if so, why. Regardless, I've always kept my mantis shrimp in glass tanks, and I've seen them punch the glass on numerous occasions. It was certainly unnerving the first few times it happened, but it's not something that worries me anymore. As always, however, my usual disclaimer applies. This is all based on my own experience. If you want to be safe, stick with acrylic, but I think the chances of a mantis shrimp breaking a glass tank are still extremely low. Next up comes a question regarding the equipment I use to maintain Bruce's glamorous lifestyle. Marcos Penderos wants to know what type of tank I keep Bruce in and its price, as well as what equipment came with it and what I've added later on. So, the tank is an Aquaone Reefsys 180, which is a 50-gallon sumped aquarium, and it's approximately a 2-foot cube. It costs around £800 new, although you can usually get a deal, and I'm pretty sure I paid around $650 when I bought mine a couple of years ago. All that's included with this, however, is the tank itself, the cupboard, the sump, and the pipework. So you still need quite a lot of stuff from there. The essential equipment required in addition to this would be a return pump. I use a Jecod 4000, a heater. I use a 100 watt titanium heater connected to a D&D temperature controller, and some form of lighting. I use an Aqua Illumination Hydra 26 HD, although this is only because I'm running it as a full reef setup. If you're not planning on keeping corals, then there is no real lighting requirement, so you just want something to give the aesthetic you're looking for. Although I would say don't go for anything too bright, and it should be on the bluer end of the spectrum ideally, as this will be more natural for your mantis shrimp. I would also highly recommend buying a protein skimmer. This helps to deal with the excess nutrients generated by the messy eating habits of a mantis shrimp. I use a Magus Curve 5, which is actually rated for tanks twice the size of Bruce's, to help mitigate his poor table manners. Finally, for additional flow in the aquarium, I also have two Vortech MP10 powerheads. This is again primarily for the corals, however I would recommend a powerhead of some kind even if you're only keeping a mantis shrimp, as the flow in the tank helps to make sure there are no dead spots where detritus can build up, as well as improving overall filtration. Finally, there are a few optional bits I've added, including an auto top-up for replacing water lost through evaporation. I'm calling this optional, but to be honest, I would say this is really essential for running a saltwater tank, as otherwise this needs to be done manually at least once a day to avoid changes in salinity. I'll leave a full equipment list in the description of this video for anyone who's interested. To be clear, however, the difference between my setup and the minimum required to keep a mantis shrimp is considerable. I would say that in terms of tank size, I don't think I would keep a peacock mantis shrimp in anything much smaller, but almost everything else in my tank is over-spec'd, either because of the nature of running it as a full reef tank, or because I'm trying to alleviate potential issues caused by keeping a mantis shrimp, without significantly increasing the amount of work I have to do looking after him with water changes and the like. This next question deals with Bruce's tank mates, and is another one a lot of people have asked about. I think Mike K said it best when he asked, "Does Bruce eat the fish?" The fact I successfully house a mantis shrimp alongside fish without a massacre ensuing is something that always seems to astound people. This is likely because information on these animals will often say they must be housed alone, as well as the fact many YouTube videos will show them being kept alone and make content showing their more aggressive behaviour. When I got the original Bruce, first of his name, even I thought he must just have had a particularly chilled personality, because all I'd read and all the videos I'd watched seemed to show he should have been far more aggressive than he was. Now that I've been honoured to care for Bruce II, long shall he reign, for almost a year and found him to have the same relaxed attitude as his predecessor, I've come to a new conclusion. I now believe the generally laid-back vibe in the tank is primarily down to how the habitat has been constructed. Firstly, the fact that Bruce has been provided with ample living accommodation in the form of the network of pipes I installed ensures he always has somewhere to retreat and feel secure, as well as being able to modify his home by opening or closing different entrances as he sees fit. Please don't think the palace I built for Bruce is required, but it is important to give a mantis shrimp a home where they can get complete privacy. I've said this before in previous videos, but it bears repeating. If you can always see your mantis shrimp, and particularly if you can see your mantis when it's molting, then it does not have a suitable lair. Mantis shrimp will always prefer complete seclusion when they molt, so if you can see them doing this, it's only because they couldn't find anywhere better, and this will be adding stress to the animal during what is already a very dangerous time for them. The second reason for the tranquility of Bruce's domain comes from the fact that the tank was not designed solely with Bruce in mind, but was always meant to be a full reef setup with other inhabitants to consider. As such, after making sure Bruce's home was suitable, I also ensured when I was aquascaping the tank that there were plenty of nooks and crannies where the fish could escape and feel safe from Bruce if he was feeling particularly frisky. By making sure everyone in the tank knows that they can flee to a safe hiding spot if they need to, it just makes for a happier, more relaxed atmosphere where everyone is more willing to tolerate others. I should just make it clear that all of this relates to keeping a smasher type mantis such as Bruce. If you attempt to keep a spearer with fish, all bets are off. Another popular topic of questions is Bruce's diet. This is probably the most varied category of questions, so I'll go through and answer some of the most popular ones quickly. The first general question can be summed up by Danny's Coral Reef, who asks, what type of food do you give your mantis shrimp? For day-to-day feeding, everything I give Bruce is frozen. The staples are fish, small silversides or lancefish, cockles in their shells, and whole mussels, all of which I buy from my local fish store. My standard feeding regime is to rotate these three on an every other day basis. I also soak them in a frozen food enrichment while they're defrosting to make sure Bruce gets his vitamins. I tend to stick to this routine pretty consistently, but it's not unusual for him to refuse food on occasion, and sometimes after a molt when he's particularly ravenous, I'll feed him every day. Outside of this routine, I top up the cleanup crew in his tank every couple of months to ensure he always has a snack on hand if he's peckish, and I always keep my eyes peeled when I'm visiting fish stores for any interesting prey that I can get him for a treat. What I've learned in general is that variety is the spice of life, so I try to offer as many different natural food sources as I can to Bruce, in the hope of providing him with a balanced diet similar to what he would eat in the wild. Next up, William Woby asked, have you ever tried feeding him shore crabs from the UK coast? The price of live and even frozen food at pet stores seems to be a popular theme, and several of you were interested to know if you could go and catch crabs and other critters locally to feed to your mantis shrimp. With regards to William's question specifically, I have caught and fed UK shore crabs to Bruce in the past. I've done a little research and these seemed an ideal food source because they're used to living in tidal pools and as such can handle a wide range of temperatures and salinities. This means they can survive in the relatively warm water of a home aquarium, providing they're acclimated properly. With regards to other live prey you can find in your local area, I can't speak with any authority. I have seen a lot of American mantis shrimp keepers will feed freshwater crayfish, and while I wouldn't see this as any problem for an occasional treat, I also wouldn't want it to be the primary food source for my mantis shrimp, as it's not something they would ever hunt in the wild. I also don't see any issue with buying frozen foods from a market rather than a pet store, and this is also something I've done in the past. However, I do always like to add some form of enrichment, as I would with any other frozen food. Finally, a dog smarter than Jake Paul asks, do I have to do live feedings because I really don't like it? With regards to if you need to provide your mantis shrimp with live prey or not, I've definitely heard some differing opinions over the years. These have ranged from it's murder to offer any form of live food, to it being a form of animal cruelty not to provide your animal with a natural hunting experience. For my own opinion, I don't think it's a requirement to provide live prey to your mantis shrimp, but as stated earlier, what is more important is to provide a variety of foods, and in particular to provide something in a shell so they have to use their smasher to get into it. On the other hand, I do think there is something to be said for providing as natural an environment as possible, and the mental enrichment that comes from having to actively hunt their prey is definitely a factor in a happy mantis shrimp. Next, something quite a few of you wanted to know. Ultimate Failure Elbon the Lollinator asks, is the decorator crab gone too? A lot of people have been interested in what became of the decorator crab Bruce bizarrely made friends with in one of my previous videos. After Bruce decided to grant him a reprieve, I initially left him in the tank and never saw any more signs of aggression. After a couple of months, however, I became concerned that there might not have been enough food in the tank for him, so eventually I moved him into my 4-foot reef tank. I did want to get some footage of him in there for this video, but he's nocturnal and very good at hiding, so I'm afraid I drew a blank. I've only seen him 2 or 3 times since he went in, but as far as I'm aware, he's doing fine. So, that brings us to the end of this video. I've really enjoyed going through all your comments, and I want to say a big thank you to everyone who submitted a question. If there's anything I didn't cover, or something you still want to know, post in the comments, and if I get enough, maybe I can do another one of these. Also, If you don't want to miss out on any of Bruce's adventures, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And as always, thanks for watching.